Okay, we'll begin working with two pieces today, number 210 and 211. 210 is white and red plum blossoms, and 211 is the Great Wave, which you've seen before in class. Before we start that, we want to mention something about the Edo, I think it's Edo period in Japan. Obviously, spans over a pretty long time. But when we look at that period, what we want to think about is society being broken up into different classes: warriors, farmers, artisans, and at the bottom, merchants. And so there was a lot of division among the classes. However, there was the pleasure district, which was in each city where everybody would kind of mix together. So even though there was great stratification amongst the different classes, there was an area where everybody mixed together, and that's where all the kind of interesting art came out of. All right, so first one, number 210, white and red plum blossoms. Ogata Korin, circa 1710 to 1716 CE, right? So we're pretty late on, right? We're past the Renaissance in Europe, definitely into moving into the Enlightenment, right? Ink, watercolor, gold leaf on paper. My question is, and I'll want you to think about this as I'm talking, is what work that we've already done does this remind you of? I will say that this is a folding screen, so you might think, oh, it's the Siege of Belgrade, but I want you to think something else. Look more along the lines of the form of the piece, how it's put together, what it's made of, what does it remind you of? Because this artist's work was greatly influenced, a great influencer on the artist that I'm thinking of. Okay. So I mentioned it's a folding screen. Is a large surface about 67 inches high, which is taller than your average Japanese person at the time. What you can do with it, of course, is that you can create a real sense of enclosure. You can make a real space where you're surrounded entirely by this large screen that is glittering with gold, and the gold, of course, would be an expression of light. And the branches, as they come out at you, seem as though they're almost really there because you're enclosed in this space. You'll notice that there is both a sense of abstraction with the water, with the curving of the water, with those great kind of almost serpentine-like, obviously stylized curves, but also the realistic depiction of the branches. So there's a mixture of both abstraction and realism. I don't mean the kind of realism when we're talking about Manet or Courbet, realistic realism. So Khan Academy says that this kind of work is called, or ends up being called, Rimpa, which is also known as the School of Korin. Korin, of course, doesn't actually make this stuff up. Korin borrows from a previous artist, mostly from a guy named Sotatsu, who created works that were aimed at the higher class, to fulfill their desires for luxury. So this style becomes very prominent in Japan, and it obviously makes its way west. You can look at this, and this looks like something that somebody would buy today, right, at I don't know, World Market, if they wanted to stick it up on its wall. I'm not denigrating the piece by saying that. I think it's quite beautiful, but that this style is something very popular that you can see people wanting to decorate their homes with even now in the 21st century. This is a work of Sotatsu's, right? So you can see how that leads into this. You can see where he gets that. All right, so a little bit more about Sotatsu's techniques that Korin borrowed, kind of adopted, and that got popularized, again, known as the School of Rimpa. So images reduced to their basic forms and then kind of amplified. So obviously we can kind of see with the river, we absolutely see that, so it's got a curve to it, there's movement in the water, and so, but it's reduced, right? It's not portrayed realistically, but then certain ideas about the movement in the water are amplified. But there's also emphasis on interplay of color, form, and texture. We can absolutely see that within the branches, specifically through the use of the ink methods that he uses. Two methods that you want to know about are Tara Shikomi, which is when you take diluted ink and you blend it together before it's dry. And then mokutsu, or bonelessness, which creates forms without exterior outlines, and that's what we get here with the trunk of this tree. We get this really beautiful kind of modeled image of the trunk, and we can see kind of where the ink is kind of modeled together and kind of clumped. That's kind of unattractive use of the word, or unattractive word to use. But okay, did you guess it was Klimt? Because this artist was a great Cornu was a great influence on Klimt, and you can absolutely see that there, especially with the use of the gold and the use of the abstracted forms, right? You can see the swirls, right? It's quite beautiful. All right, so a little bit about printmaking. I'm going to go on to 211, to the Great Wave, so you can turn to that one now. Actually, I'm going to do this on the next video so I don't overload this one.